Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Series 19 of the Plant-Based Podcast is sponsored by Queen and Fine Floral Design. Enjoy gorgeous flowers to lift your mood or gift to a loved one with stunning seasonal bouquets, monthly subscriptions, eloquent wedding flowers and home floral decorations. Queen and Fine bring nature-led designs to your home because flowers really do make people happy. Now serving in Charlotte, North Carolina, including surrounding areas, and in the UK from 2026. Check us out at queenandfine.com and follow us on Instagram at queenandfine. Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. So today's guest is Martin Fish. He is a horticultural expert with over 45 years of experience as a gardener, writer, broadcaster, RHS judge and educator. Known for his practical advice and warm, approachable style, Martin has shared his passion through radio, television, magazines, and live events across the UK.
Ooh la la. So in this episode, we're going to dive into Martin's lifelong journey in horticulture, see what continues to inspire him, see how gardening can bring joy, connection and creativity into all of our lives. And whether you're a seasoned grower or just starting out, you're in for a really cool conversation with Martin because he's super down to earth. He's got amazing knowledge and wisdom, and we want to welcome him to the show. How are you doing, man?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me with you as well.
Oh, no problem.
It is such a pleasure to have you here, Martin. Like, you're always such a joy to talk to, and I know our listeners will love it.
Yeah.
And
I just don't know why we didn't do it sooner, Ellen. That's the only thing.
Same. I do not know why we didn't do it sooner, but we are doing it now, and that's what matters. So. Yeah. First of all, just like always, we ask our guests to give us kind of a potted, pardon the pun, history of your career so far. How did you get to be where you are today, Martin?
Oh, wow. How long have you got? Because, yes, it's over 45 years, as you said at the beginning. I started as an apprentice gardener. I left school, started as an apprentice gardener on a parks department in Nottinghamshire, where I grew up, and went to college and did all of that thing. Then I became a head gardener for a while, but the wages were really, really poor back in those days, and I needed to earn a bit more money so I could get a mortgage. So when I was in my sort of about 23, 24, left my job as a head gardener, started my own business, and essentially I've worked for myself since then. And it was initially a bit of garden maintenance, a bit of soft landscaping, with the aim to start in a nursery. So we rented some land and then eventually could afford to buy some land, and we started a nursery which we had for almost 20 years, to be fair. And it was during that time I went off in slightly different directions. I started writing for magazines, doing some local radio. That got me into some regional television and working at the flower shows. So eventually the nursery sort of stopped because the other work had taken over. And then I got more involved with shows, running of shows. I ran the Harrogate flower shows for a number of years. I now do more or less the same. I'm doing writing, radio, as you've said, lots of talks to people, work with some fantastic people like you two at various shows that I go to, and the judging. So it's always been horticulture. And although my main day-to-day job isn't practical gardening, we still have a good sized garden, always have done. So I do lots of hands-on gardening. I very much like to get my fingers into the soil.
Yeah, definitely. You've got just such a vast knowledge, and you're super well known as well. And kind of, I really want to, dig into kind of your history here and there. But what would you say is the kind of one kind of gardening project or achievement that you're most proud of over the years?
Now that is
a long career.
it is a difficult question, that is, because, I have worked with some amazing people over the last, it was about 48 years, lovely places, and some really interesting projects. But I suppose if I had to really hone it down to
Mm-hmm.
something that's going to be there for a long time. It's quite a simple thing, but it's something I'm very proud of. When I was a young gardener and on the parks department, we did loads of tree planting,
Mm-hmm.
and I still live not too far from where I did my training. And I get a real kick if I'm driving around and I see a tree that I planted 48 years
Oh,
ago that was
wow.
Oh,
a
I
really
love that.
small
That's so
tree.
cool.
And now it's a huge tree, which makes me feel really old. And Jill, my wife, she's often with me, and I say, I planted that tree over there when I
Yeah.
was 16, and she's getting a bit bored with it by now. But
Oh,
that,
well, we're not.
no, thank you. But that to me, I
I
just
love
think,
that.
yeah, when I'm long gone and everybody's forgotten who Martin Fish was, that tree will carry on for generations. So
Yeah.
I think I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah.
Martin, this is very
Cool.
appropriate because we're recording this during National Tree Week for a start.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
secondly, um, isn't there a saying that when's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday. Um,
Good
and the
point.
next best time is today. And the
Mm.
Yeah,
best people are those who plant trees that they know they won't always sit in the shade of, something like that. That's the
Mm.
yeah.
saying. So
It's absolutely. Or the other one, isn't it? Plant a tree for your grandchildren. That's
yeah,
another one, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
That's
That's
so
so
nice.
nice. Um, I'm wondering over your vast career, what some of the biggest changes are that you've seen in gardening
Mm.
practices, or perhaps plant availability, or anything in the
Hmm.
UK over your career that you think, has been the biggest difference.
Yeah, I think we garden differently from when I started. It was very formal when I started.
Mm.
I think we garden in a more relaxed way. We're more nature and wildlife friendly now than we probably used to be.
Mhm.
We don't use the range of chemicals. When I was an apprentice, we used to use some toxic chemicals that have thankfully long since been banned. They've all gone, which is great. We don't use any chemicals in our garden at all, and I think we are more relaxed. We're wildlife friendly. We're conscious of the birds and the bees and the butterflies in the garden. We don't go out and chop everything down in the autumn. We let it die down so it provides food and habitat for nature. So I think that is a great thing, and that's encouraged a lot of people into gardening that are also
Mhm.
very keen on wildlife. And you touched on it as well. I think there's a much greater range of plants available now. And Michael will sort of pay testament to that because he's very much into plants. But we seem to have a much bigger range of plants when we go to a
Yeah.
nursery or a garden centre. There's always something new. I think because there's a desire for people to have something new, the breeders are working
Mhm.
their socks off. So I think that is great because it just inspires people to plant more in the
Mhm.
garden. And I think the other thing is because more people are probably gardening now than they used to
Mhm.
do, in a different way probably. But I think
Mhm.
we've got lots more gardening events, all the lovely flower
Yeah,
shows that have
definitely.
popped up in the last
Mm.
20, 30 years and all the plant fairs and
Mhm.
this type of thing. So there's so much information and
Mm.
knowledge out there that has made it completely different.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's
I
so
mean,
interesting.
yeah, I think over the years, like you've obviously seen a lot of change with that, but you've probably seen a lot of changes with kind of the jobs that are available or kind of the career options. Can you talk to that for a short time, please?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think absolutely, and both the pair of us, Michael, we
Mm.
were at a careers seminar
Yeah.
only last week. You were there as one of the headline speakers, and the amount of jobs available. I mean, you can work in horticulture and be a scientist.
Hmm.
You don't have to be hands-on in the garden. There's all the
Hmm.
the, the science that's coming into horticulture, especially on the propagation side. It's very technical in ways. So there are so many opportunities that you can
Hmm.
work in horticulture, whether you want the academic side or the practical side, commercial, amenity. There's a big rise again, I think, in private gardeners, head gardeners, and private gardening. That seems to have gone
Hmm.
to another level
Okay.
from my day. So I think, yeah, it's a great career for young people, and I think
Hmm.
it's not always one that's talked about in
Yeah.
careers at school, but if you are keen, then just look at the opportunities there, and they are vast.
Hmm.
Mm. Mm.
And,
What would
and
be? Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
go on.
Go on, Ellen. Go on, Mel.
What do you think? There's a lot of people probably over the past 10 years or so that have
Mm.
entered the horticultural world through job career changes, so they're sick and tired of a corporate world or whatever job they're doing, realizing that they're not passionate about that, and moving into horticulture, bringing in like a whole lot of skills as well that they've learned prior. Is that different now to before, do you think?
Yeah, I think that hugely different. I mean, it was, I think, when I started back in the 1970s, late 70s, you people went into horticulture and maybe then got out of it to do something else, but you very rarely got people coming in sort of midlife, in their 30s and the 40s, the career change. And I can only think of maybe a handful of people that did that, but now it's quite common, and a huge part of the UK sort of horticultural workforce, especially in gardens like the RHS gardens. A lot of their gardeners are career changers. So that is something that I think within the last sort of 10, 15 years, that's become more prominent. And I think it's good in one way because it brings people in that have got different life skills. They can bring some of those life skills into their job, which is good. It enables them to do it. I suppose I don't mean this in a negative way, but if somebody suddenly decides to be a gardener at 45 and they've had a year of the rest of their career as an accountant, they are still sort of a young gardener in the way of experience and the practicalities. So they've got a learning path ahead of them. But I think lots of people that, in fairness, that come in as career changers have had gardening as a hobby and they've liked it so much they've thought, right, let's get out the rat race and do something like gardening. So no, I think it's good, and it brings in so many other skills.
Yeah.
Okay. I just it's so great to have you here with your experience. I just want to stay on careers for a moment, actually. Like, what advice would you give anyone, young person or career changer, getting into horticulture? Because is it that obvious what sort of roles you can take on? Like, what are the expectations of what you could earn? Like, what would be your kind of like little snapshot of advice for anyone who really wants to take that leap into horticulture, whether they're young or a career changer?
Yeah, I think that's good because I still, as much as there are so many opportunities there for people in horticulture, all different levels, I don't think it's put out there widely. I mean, we were at a careers convention, so it was there.
Yeah.
But I think if you're at school and you have a careers teacher, then I don't think horticulture gardening is high on their list of jobs that they should be sending you to. And certainly when I left school, it was seen that, the only reason you become a gardener is if you're not very good at school. The careers teacher would never, ever encourage you to be a gardener. I mean, their advice to me was, don't be a gardener. Go and work down the village coal mine and you'll earn
Oh
double the money, and which is something I in no way would have done that.
yeah.
So I think if anybody is interested, then they do need to do a little bit more digging. But there's certainly, because with the internet, there's so much on there. You can have a career in botanical gardens, commercial horticulture, the science side. But I don't think it is widely put out there for people unless they do a little bit of digging, which is a shame because I think schools should be far more proactive to get people into horticulture because we have got a good
And
horticultural.
show that it's a commercial world as well.
It is, yeah, it's a commercial world, and you can still have a good job and you can still earn, a good salary in horticulture, writing, media side, the practical side. There is a really lovely career there. And we are getting more people in, but we need the people that drive it on the careers side to actually put this as a viable option.
Yeah, I quite
Which
agree.
I'll do when I'm Prime Minister. I'm going to do that because
It's
I'm going to
when
make
rather
everybody.
than if. I like that.
Yeah, well, everybody. Thank you, Michael. Everybody's going to have to plant a clump of rhubarb in the garden, an apple tree, and we're going to make horticulture the top career for people in the UK.
And a nice crumble.
Exactly.
Martin for Prime Minister.
Ooh la la.
Thank you. You can be my horticultural ministers.
Thank you.
Job share.
Oh no, I'm not job sharing with
We'll think of two jobs. We'll think of two.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love that. I do wonder though if careers in horticulture will change going forward because obviously climate change and everything else, and young people being more aware of the environment and sustainability. So I hope that perhaps in the future it becomes a little bit higher up on the list of careers in schools and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think
I
we need
hope
a
so.
Martin Fish for Prime Minister to make that
Thank you.
We'll make the placard.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just change our route a little bit within the podcast now. Talking about kind of younger people getting into horticulture, there's so many that do want to, but have, a little space to garden in with regards to like staying in apartments or rented accommodation,
Mm.
that kind of thing. Are there any of your kind of favorite easy win plants or techniques to inspire people with small spaces to get into gardening and enjoy their outdoor space?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly if it's a rental property, then I would say plant quite a lot in containers. I think that because if you're likely to be moving on, then you can take a container with you, but you can't always dig everything up out of the garden, especially if you're moving in the summer. So I think containers work really well. And the good thing is if you've got a small space, garden, balcony, whatever, and you're growing in containers, you can move them around and you can change the feel of the garden. So it looks different at different times of the year. And there's so much we can grow in containers. We can grow trees, we can grow shrubs, we can grow, bedding plants in them. So you can have a real mixture to get that colour there as well. And fruit and veg, of course, there's so many things now that we grow in containers, fruit and veg. I know some people grow everything in big containers and they get some really, really good crops. I think plants, you've got to think carefully if you've only got a small space to choose what you really like. I mean, if you've got a huge garden, then you can plant all sorts because you can't see it all the time. But if you're looking out of your window or you're onto the balcony patio and you've got a small garden, you've got to enjoy what you've planted all year round. So I love evergreens anyway, and I think they make a good backbone to any garden. So some nice evergreens, not huge ones necessarily, some nice evergreens that are going to look good all year round. I mean, one that I can see from where I'm sitting now outside, and it's quite a sort of grey, drizzly afternoon, is a Daphne Eternal Fragrance, which is a small evergreen Daphne that seems to flower and flower and flower. It's been in flower since spring through the summer and still in flower. So that gives you something to look good all for a long time. And I think also think about a small garden doesn't mean you've got to have just small plants. I think sometimes you want some big, bold plants to give a bit of wow factor in the garden. So, if you've got cannas for that subtropical feel or some nice evergreens, but just get some bigger grasses or some big grasses in pots and then smaller plants with them. I think that will have far more impact because you want this to look really, really good, and trees work well in pots. That almost bonsais them so it keeps them smaller, but all there are dwarf trees and foliage. I'm a big foliage fan. You can inject pockets of colour with flower, but if you've got things like big leaf hostas and heucheras that are there to give that lush feel, I think it just creates this little mini oasis to sit in.
That's nice.
That's lovely. I'm picturing this. Like as you were describing all of the plants, I was kind of picturing a little kind of patio
She was
area.
building the garden as you went.
Yeah, I was like a little
Marvellous.
patio area in London. Someone's just moved in and they're looking at
Yeah.
it thinking, where can
Or
I
a
put
new
a spot?
build. Yeah,
Or a
definitely.
new
Yeah.
build.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. I think that's a really good tip actually, as with regards to like the big lush tropical foliage plants, because
Yeah.
often we say, oh, grow some herbs, that's really lovely in
Yeah.
pots. And of course, that's wonderful. Grow herbs. You can grow herbs along with your big lush tropical plants. But that's what really gives the impact, what you're saying, isn't it, Martin? And
Totally.
Yeah, it
that's
is.
going to
Yeah.
make a difference. Yeah.
Interestingly, at that point, I don't know if you guys noticed last week with the Garden Media Guild Awards, Andrew Jackson, who put together the New Build Manifesto,
Yeah.
won the New Talent Alan Titchmarsh Award, didn't he? And he's been
Yeah.
on the podcast and he's kind of talking a lot about new builds and how to support those people with creating a great garden. So that is another useful angle. So that was great news last week.
Yeah, really good.
Let's dig in a bit more with the plants, actually, because I'm a plantsman. I want to keep talking plants. What plants are your must-haves, or also what newer plants? We've touched on newer plants a little bit earlier. What newer plants are you a big fan of? Because we'll talk more about the potting shed stage shortly, But that is where you have a lot of the independent nurseries and kind of you
Mm.
see a lot of those new genetics up close and personal, don't you? Well, can you give us a few recommendations for your must-have and newer plants, please?
Right, newer plants. I love hydrangeas, and I know you do as well,
Mm.
Michael.
Yeah,
And I think there's some super new hydrangeas, but even
yeah,
some of the older ones. I mean, Annabelle is one that every garden we've had, we
yeah,
have to have Annabelle in there. And I love the paniculatas. I think they're
yeah.
just so much flower on them, so value for money. I do like my trees, as I mentioned right at the very beginning. And I always try to have trees in the garden. And it's as long as you don't plant huge trees in a small garden, you can usually get away with it. I love silver birch, the Betula
Yeah.
jackmontii,
And
and I
multi-stemmed. They're nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've got a multi-stemmed in the garden, so you get all those stems of lovely white bark. Ours is a young one; it's
Mm.
just starting to colour up. Another couple of years, it'll look fantastic. And another one of my real favourite trees is the liquid amber. Liquid amber Worplesdon is one, but there are loads of different ones. The reason I like Worplesdon, the cultivar Worplesdon, is I trained at college, a college called Meristwood, which is in Surrey, in a village called Worplesdon. So I just,
Okay.
it's just a little memory thing for me. But I also love my perennials, and one that we've been growing in the garden, one that came from one of the specialist nurseries at the shows, is Diacia hopleys.
Oh,
And it's
I love
totally
that one.
hardy. Oh, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. It
Oh,
flowers and flowers and
yeah.
flowers, a really pink flower.
And I'm
And what
always
I like,
shocked at how tall it is. Because
yeah,
when
it
you
gets
think of
to
the
about,
diacias for baskets, they're about 2 inches tall. This is
yeah.
like 2 foot tall.
It is.
It
Well, if
it
not
blows my
more, I
mind.
think they've
Yeah.
got probably a metre tall in our
Yeah.
garden this year.
Oh,
Wow.
And they've coped with the heat and the dry
yeah.
weather that we've had over the summer. And
Oh.
they've been in flower from June up until a couple of weeks ago. We've had some quite
Mm.
cold nights, -3, -4s, and it's stopped them flowering. But, I think value for money, they've done absolutely well. The other one is the Goras, which of course have had a name change, haven't they now? They're the Onothera, isn't it
Oh,
now?
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think they're a great one and a good one if you've got a really hot, dry spot in the garden. They just flower and flower and flower. So I do like a mixture. I'm very much a mixed gardener. In our
Mm.
borders, we've got a mixture of shrubs. I try to make it so we've got colour all year round, whether it's shrubs, evergreens, stem colours, or summer flowers.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm looking out now. I'm looking at a patch of dogwoods, the dogwoods that we
Mm,
grow for the winter stems,
yeah.
a variety called Midwinter Fire, but the foliage has gone a really bright orange colour. That
Mm.
will fall off within the next week or two, and then we're going to have those lovely orange stems that will
Mm.
take us through till spring. So I could write a list, Michael. I love. I mean, I'm just trying to. I can just see part of the garden as I look round from
Oh.
here. Pittosporums. That's something that I'm really
Yes.
into at the moment.
Me too.
Um,
Very underrated, I feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah.
are. I mean, certainly when I was a student down at Merist Wood, and that would be in the early 1980s, and it was
Mm.
a nursery practices course, we were told certain plants would not grow above the Midlands. Things like
Okay.
Pittosporum,
Yeah.
Hebis was another one,
Hmm.
Formium, the New Zealand plants. You can't grow them in the north, which obviously we can do now.
Mm.
And I just think the Pittosporums come in all different shapes. You get the big
Mm.
ones, you can get the lovely
Yeah.
mounded ones like
Yeah.
Tom Thumb.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
yeah, and they're great all year round. So I think
Mm.
for me, gardening is about getting all that lovely seasonal summer colour, but then you've got that the sort of skeleton of your shrubs and stem colour
Mm.
and evergreens.
Oh, totally. I
Yeah, I
think,
totally
sorry, we
agree.
could be locked into plants all day, but also,
Yeah.
sorry, Ellen, just Abelia. I think there's a great future for Abelia and
Mm,
Doucia as well. I
yes.
think they're two genus that there's a lot to explore in as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
picked up a lovely. I can't stop buying plants. I buy them and have no idea where I'm going to plant them. I picked up a lovely variegated abelia in a garden centre just
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. Still in
Oh,
flower, but it's got the most
yeah.
delicate
Amazing.
variegated foliage.
Fantastic plant, honestly.
Like
Yeah.
I'm literally sitting here between two plantsmen that could be talking about
You're in a
plants for
plant panini.
hours. I'm in a plant panini. So I won't say a rose between two thorns then. Okay.
Oh, you can do, yeah.
Again, I'm just letting you chat away, and I'm sitting here daydreaming about all of the plants you're mentioning and thinking about where I've seen them in different gardens. And just going back to like the really beautiful bright color corners at the midwinter fire. Um, that's at Bolwick Hall, which we've mentioned a few times on the podcast before, kind of a friend called Kenny Higgs. He's the head gardener there. It's in Norfolk, in Aylsham in Norfolk. And I can always remember the first time I really saw how spectacular they were many years ago, but they're planted all along the side of the lake there. So in winter, the colours are so striking across the lake. It does literally look like you know the emoji flame, the fire flame emoji.
Yeah.
It looks like those sitting all
Wow.
along the edge of the
Yeah.
lake, and it looks so beautiful. It's just amazing what color and interest you can have over the winter months if you just really
That's cool.
put your mind to it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and the planted en masse, they look amazing. But even if in a garden you've just got a group of 3, you still get that effect. And we're under planting with snowdrops and cyclamen coum as well, so we get that lovely ground cover flower in late winter, early spring before they come into leaf. So now they are amazing, underrated plants because people associate them with supermarket car parks, but they are really good plants.
Yeah, I agree. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to move on to non-plants, but still gardening, of course. What do you see as the most common gardening mistakes that people make, and how can they avoid them?
Oh, blimey. Well, I've probably done them all myself, to be fair. So
Blimey, I like that.
I
Same.
think one of the things I see quite often is people are very keen to get started in the spring, and probably they start too early. I think, you get a few sunny days maybe in February, early March, and think that's it, the gardening season's here. But it can all turn quite cold, of course, still at that time of the year. So I think people should really sometimes just hang back a bit. I get people asking me, can I plant this out? Can I sow that? And I'll say, no, just wait another month, get into April. The soil's warming up, there's more heat in the sun, and they will catch up. Whatever you're growing will always catch up, but it's less likely to be damaged by the frost. So I think starting too early because of enthusiasm can sometimes go slightly wrong. And I think also sometimes, again, maybe people that are fairly new to gardening, and we all do it, we all try and do too much, but they do try to do much and can't cope with it. And again, with allotments, I often say, if you can't cope with a big one, just get half an allotment or a third of an allotment and
share.
do that, get on top of it, and then you can always take more, because there's nothing more demoralizing than if the garden gets out of hand and you can't cope with it. So I think, trying to do too much in one go is something that people do. And then another one, I mean, I could think of loads, but I know the podcast can only be 3 hours long. So
that's music to my ears. Ellen's always like, keep it to 40 minutes.
I get twitchy at 45 minutes.
Oh, we do. On our podcast, Sean is the timekeeper, and he sort of reins us in when we get to a certain point. But I think the other one is watering. I think sometimes people get watering a little bit wrong. They either overwater or they underwater. And especially with new plants, I think they'll buy a new plant in the middle of the summer, put it in the ground, give it one watering and assume that is it. But of course it needs more until they get through down. But it's experience. People learn by mistakes, and hopefully they'll get it right the next time.
That's certainly how I learn. Always have to make the mistake.
And we all do. I still make them.
You can learn all the theory, and I think that's very important to learn the theory. I really do, because it's going to help you along the way. Absolutely. But there's nothing better than experiencing it. And, 1 year you might plant something and it works very, very well, but the next year it doesn't. So I think you do have to have numerous seasons of experience to know what does and doesn't work throughout the year, and in different climatic conditions. Sometimes we have a late winter, sometimes we don't, sometimes the weather's mild, sometimes we have drought, sometimes we don't. Things change and you have to adapt with that, don't you? So I do think it's very important to have like a good few seasons under your belt, experience getting your hands sort of in the soil of learning, and don't be scared to make I'm putting mistake in inverted commas here, because a mistake isn't really, is it? It's just learning, and we all do it
Mm.
every single year in gardening. It is a
Yeah.
never-ending learning curve. There's something new all of the time. So
Mhm.
just very
Yeah.
briefly, I've just taken on some land for a flower farm, but it's in North Carolina. So everyone's like, oh, great, you can get on with that. Amazing. It will be amazing straight away. And I'm like, I've never gardened in a climate that is
Yeah.
insanely hot and humid in the summer, that has pests and diseases that I've never experienced before.
Wow.
And very slightly different planting times throughout the year, just probably 3 weeks or so-ish throughout the seasons. And this is all completely new to me. So
Mm.
this is I with the theory that I've learned, I can apply that, but
Mhm.
it's without the experience of doing it for a good few many seasons, I don't feel like well-rounded enough just yet.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So there'll be many mistakes.
Yeah, and it's not always a mistake you've made as well. I think
Yeah.
the weather can play a
Mm.
huge
Yeah.
role. You might have done everything right, and then you
Well,
suddenly
plants
get a
always
heat
behave
wave.
differently, like
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Very good advice.
it's a
Um,
very exciting project though, Ellen. That is really
yeah.
exciting.
I
It
told you, Ellen. I told you everyone was talking about it.
is.
Mm,
Do
I
you know
messaged
how
her the
many?
other day and I told her everyone's mentioning your piece of land to me. It's like,
mm.
oh,
Ah,
really
that's
cute.
so nice to be here and know that people are seeing
Yeah.
it and are talking about it. I've had so many offers of people suddenly wanting to come to America and bring their gardening gloves with them. And I'm just like, honestly, you have no idea it's like this is like quite intense gardening, like when it's in the heat and humidity.
Their hair will go
Yeah.
curly.
Their hair would definitely go curly. So yeah, those Instagram photos aren't going to look pretty, but here we are.
Martin, how about kind of I always hate the word trends. I don't know if there are trends or not, but just kind of what do you see as sort of movements in gardening going forwards as well? And I also would love your comment on because you talked about allotments and kind of how people see it as overwhelming. And one trend that obviously started in the last few years was the no dig movement as
Mm.
well. Is that something that you follow, something that you look to recommend, or how do you feel about that as a trend? And also
Okay.
any other trends that you see
Yeah.
coming up, really.
Okay. I mean, I am the least trendy person about, so I'm probably not
That's
the
why I hate
person.
this word. It's like,
No, no,
yeah,
but I
just
know what
kind
you
of
mean. But
happenings.
I think certainly over sort of, the next decade or
Mm,
so, I think there's going to be a lot more in the gardening world about climate change
mm,
and plants and what we can grow, what will grow well. And I think this is where lots of new plants coming in probably play a role as well, because
mm,
the RHS certainly and other people are looking at plants that have got resilience that will stand what we seem to be getting in the UK at the minute is sort of warmer, drier summers,
mhm,
not always, and sort of wet winters. And it's finding plants that will straddle both those seasons and
mhm,
survive. So I think that is something that we're going to be seeing and hearing an awful lot more about. And you're probably at the forefront of that, Michael, with a lot of the work you do,
mhm.
because you'll see things that are coming
Yeah,
along.
yeah.
I think houseplants have had a huge surge in popularity over
Mhm,
recent years, and I think that will carry on, which is great. I think it really will. I mean, we're getting more growers in the UK, and I think when the UK growers all finally go over to peat free, that will be
mhm,
more plants grown in the UK, because there's still an awful lot coming in from the continent, which are in peat. But I think as our growers develop the peat free more, that will really give our houseplant industry a boost, because there's so many people love houseplants now. You've only got to go to the flower shows. Chelsea, they have the houseplant studios, they have
yeah,
the
totally.
houseplant village at Malvern, and it is just
Yeah.
full. And it's a good way to get younger people into
Mm,
horticulture. They can start
absolutely.
with them in the house and then they move on to the garden. And I
Mm,
think, touching on the allotment side, the grow your own side,
yeah.
I think that will continue to grow as well. And I
Mhm,
talk to people that the first thing they want to do is grow their own vegetables, and I think when they've grown a few of their own fruit and veg and fresh herbs, they think, wow, these taste so much nicer. So I'd like to think
mm,
that that movement will continue.
okay.
And on allotments, when it comes to no dig, I am not a no
Mm,
digger, I'm afraid.
mhm,
I've tried it,
okay.
and I've had this conversation with no dig people, sometimes quite heated, who swear by it. But I think, sometimes I think if you've got a system that works, I don't do the
Yeah.
deep digging anymore. When I was young, everybody deep dug their soil every year. I certainly don't do that because it's too much like hard work. I have tried no dig on when we used to have a really wet, sticky clay soil, and it just didn't work because it stayed too wet below and things weren't growing particularly well. So I tend to do what I call my tickling. So I, rather than digging it with a spade, I just basically tickle the top few inches and incorporate compost. So we make loads of garden compost in our garden because you can buy really good soil conditioners. Organic soil conditioners that you put on just to get that organic matter content in there and that sort of, you know, all those good nutrients down into the soil. So when I finish clearing our veg beds, I've taken out the things that are finished. We've still got the winter veg in. I will then put some of the compost on the beds, leave it, but then just lightly tickle it into the top inch or so. So it's half visible, half buried to a couple of inches. And that seems to work well because then the worms pull it down. So it's a minimal tillage sort of thing, which the farmers have minimal tillage rather than a no dig. So I'm doing a little bit of gentle cultivation, but I haven't adopted the no dig. So I hope I'm not offended any of your
which is fantastic.
No,
Halfway.
Martin, this is of great interest to me, I've got to say, because on my allotment in Norfolk, the soil is very sandy and it's a no dig allotment and it just has worked perfectly. However, the flower farm is very thick, heavy orange clay. And my initial thought was, gotta be no dig. Like it's me on my own, so I can't be digging it. I don't have all the equipment, you know, let's just do no dig. But I really was wondering about that because it is very, very heavy. I like it's known, like it's called the Piedmont area where I am is it's just very orange, sticky clay. And I was wondering how that would work. And I was wondering if I might just need to put the mulch down in autumn and then very slightly, like you said, kind of like titivate it into the top side, like um, minimal incorporating it, but just maybe just a couple of inches perhaps, because that's kind of where I was going with it. I desperately want to do no dig, but also we need the plants to grow. So, you know, I think what you're doing is
Yeah,
what I might do, yeah.
and I think that would work. I mean, we've got some friends not far from us in Nottinghamshire, Paula and Stephen Routledge. In fact, we were there with our video camera doing a video of their sort of late season cut flower a few weeks ago because they're growing some amazing new varieties of chrysanthemums. They are on very similar conditions to you. Obviously, the weather's different in where you are in North Carolina, but they're on really sticky clay. And they, when they started this project 3 or 4 years ago, they said, we're going to do no dig. So they made lots, got in lots of organic matter, digestate, that type of thing, and did it in metre wide beds with a path metre wide bed and just put the compost on. And the first year it worked really well. And then they started to have one or two problems because, again, it was just trapping the moisture in. And it was really waterlogged below and the roots weren't growing down. So they now, at the end of the season, they will actually cultivate the bed, working in the last of the compost from this season. And then they top it off with new compost and plant into the compost. But it's just broken up that wet, soggy soil and helped with the drainage. And it's worked really, really well for them. I'll put you in touch with them, Ellen Mary, because they'll be able to help you as well.
Oh, Martin, that would be absolutely wonderful. I appreciate that. Wow, this has worked out well for me, this episode, hasn't it? But you know what? Also, isn't that wonderful about horticulture? We do all want to help each other. If we know something, we want to share that information. If we've done something and we know, you know, we want to help. Like it's the succession of that information. I really, really enjoy that in horticulture.
Yeah.
But
It is. It's
that
all
would
about
be,
sharing.
yeah, absolutely it is. Thank you. That would be wonderful. Moving on to the potting shed stage, Martin, which you are very well known for. And Michael and I have both had the honour of sitting with you and chatting at the potting shed. Tell us all about it for any listeners that haven't seen you on the road with your potting shed stage. You know, what makes it different from other features at garden shows? What's it all about? How did it start?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is a bit different, I suppose. I mean, the potting shed stage is a for those who haven't seen it, it's a mobile stage unit that we take from show to show, and when you look at it from the audience, it's as if we're sitting in the potting shed, surrounded by tools and equipment and decorated with plants. And the reason I've been working at shows for a number of years, but Jill, my wife, works with me on the potting shed. And when we started doing this sort of 6-7 years ago, probably a bit longer, we wanted to have a sort of a talk stage that we could take with us, but was also a practical stage because of my background has always been practical horticulture. And we wanted it so that we could give lots of advice and show people how to garden. So that's how we've developed it, really. So we do talks ourselves. Jill, my wife, is a really good cook. So we often talk about growing. I talk about the growing fruit and veg. Jill will cook with it on the stage. So it's sort of that from the, to the plot to plate concept that we do. But then we also engage with the nurseries, because we're usually in the floral market at the flower shows, and we engage with the nurseries and get these specialist nurseries, which we really need to nurture because they are few and far between. They grow a range of plants that you can't buy anywhere else. So we get them onto the stage to talk about their plants and often do a demonstration and answer questions. I mean, I love answering questions. It's finished, unfortunately, now, lots of local radio, but I did 32 years with the BBC answering questions on a weekly basis. And I just love answering questions, which is, again, why we do that on our podcast. We do a Q&A session on the podcast. So it's basically, that's what it is. It's very practical, very hands-on, and we just love it. It's, going around the show, talking about gardening and sharing the love with everybody.
We shouldn't forget Jill, should we now, Martin? Well, it's all about Martin, but that potting shed stage wouldn't happen without Jill, right?
Well, like I say, I mean, as well as doing the cooking on there as well, that Jill hosts the Q&A sessions, and she's a great organizer behind the scenes. Jill is the sort of the nerve center that organizes not only the potting shed but me. I wouldn't know where to go each day if it weren't for Jill doing all the office work. So yes, she is the business. Well, we are a joint business. Yeah.
So not only are you showcasing independent nurseries, talking to specialists about, say, plant families like Agapanthus or Cannas, Coleus, but you've also got the general Q&A. And what sort of questions do the audience members bring you? And has that kind of changed in the last couple of years? Is there any kind of like newer pests that they're talking about, or different sorts of problems or queries? What sort of stuff do you see coming through?
Yeah, it has changed a little bit. I mean, some are always going to be the same. I mean, I remember when I first sat in my first panel, I'd only been in my early 30s and I was absolutely petrified thinking, will I be able to answer them? But we still get a lot of those questions. We always get fruit problems in the autumn. You get weed problems at certain times of the year. What can I plant in this sunny border, and why is my plant dying? But we are getting, what I have noticed over the years is the movement of some pests and diseases. I mean, certainly things like lily beetle, 20 years ago, we didn't have it in the north of England. It was confined to the south. But over the last 20 years, doing shows, through England, Scotland and all over the place, I've seen it gradually move north. Oh, really? So it is now pretty much widespread. And another one that we're watching the progression of at the moment is box moth caterpillar. Again, we didn't tend to get it where we live further north, but it is now all over the place. So it is interesting how things do move around and sort of migrate further north. But the basic questions are similar. And it's a weird thing. You can, not always, but sort of 9 times out of 10, the last question that we get on a session, we always say, this is your last chance to ask a question. And Jill will go to them with the microphone and somebody puts the hand up, and it's usually, how do I get rid of mare's tail? Weird. So we could just give them a little handout for that one. So yes.
I on any kind of gardener's question time I've done, the 2 main questions are always bindweed and slugs. How do we get rid of those?
Yes, there's always those.
At Malvern a couple of years ago, so we done like a gardeners question time every day throughout the show, and every single time they asked about mare's tail as well, and we
Mhm.
were like,
Oh,
eat it. And by the last day, we all at the same time who were on the panel just went, eat it, because
Yeah.
we were so done with answering the same question.
Ellen, talk for a minute about hostas in your local neighborhood. Because you'd said to someone, why haven't they been eaten by slugs? And they didn't even know what a
Yes.
slug was, did they?
Oh,
When I
really?
In America.
when I very
Yeah.
first
How
moved
funny.
here to Charlotte, we were walking around this kind of lovely suburb, and the gardens were just so exquisite. They were just so beautiful. And we walked by this one, and the guys were sitting outside, like on their porch, looking out into the garden. And it was there's a lot of shade. We have a lot of trees because obviously it's so hot and humid. So there's been lots of trees planted around the city to try and cool houses down and all of that. So underneath, people plant lots of shade-loving plants, and that includes many, many hostas. And I was walking around thinking, wow, some of these hostas are A, gigantic, and B, there's not a hole in them. And my cynical mind immediately goes to, oh my gosh, they're spraying them. This is the worst thing ever. And so we walked past the house, saw these guys, and I said to them, your hostas are absolutely amazing. Like, is there not a slug? There's not a slug in sight. And they looked at me completely baffled, like as if to say, what's a slug?
Mm, there you
There
go.
really aren't any. And so at the front of our house, I planted loads of hostas out, and it's true that the hostas have never once been eaten. There's no holes in them. They look absolutely extraordinary.
Wow. And I
Yeah.
take it that means there are no snails as well.
I don't think I've even seen, I mean, there will be absolutely in certain environments here, but
Yeah.
certainly in the city, there isn't any. No, I haven't even seen a
Wow.
snail since I've been here. Isn't that crazy? I mean,
Funny.
we have
It
a
is.
million other things, believe me, there's many
Different
Mm,
pests,
more
different
pests.
problems in different
And
areas.
I
Yeah.
would
mm.
say at this point, probably more that I've encountered here than I have in the
Mm.
UK so far, but slugs and snails not one of them. So
So does
yeah,
that mean, Ellen, like slugs and snails weren't that bad after all then?
there are. Oh, what here?
Yeah, no, like now that you think about all the different pests
Yeah.
you've got in US, slugs and snails in England was a
Yeah.
walk in the park.
Yeah.
Absolutely, a walk in the park. Don't worry about your slugs and snails,
Yeah, yeah.
people. It's
It could be
it's
much
not.
worse.
It's no, well, I'm sure that people who have planted out their seedlings or something and they've been munched won't agree with me. But yeah, it's not so bad perhaps as compared to some of the things that will decimate plants in about
Yeah.
half an hour. But yeah,
Which
that's
you'll find out when you've planted your flower farm, won't you? All these
I
things will
know.
just
Yeah.
suddenly decide to descend upon you.
I'm excited and scared all in one go because I'm just thinking it
That's
could
how
all
I
get
feel every
eaten
day.
overnight. But the first year's well, every year's an experiment, but the first year definitely is an experiment. But anyway, do you have something like a really memorable audience moment that
Hmm.
you can like something really extraordinary, something that stands out to you that you won't forget whilst you've been on the
Because you
potting
do
session?
have a laugh there. I've walked past a few times and you're always giggling up
Yeah.
on that potting
Yeah,
garden.
no, we like to have a laugh. Yeah, no, I mean, there's been so many over the years. Some things I can't really repeat on a podcast, really, because I could tell you off air, as it were. I mean, part of it is working with really lovely people, and you both of you have been on it. We've had lots of the sort of English celeb gardeners on, Carol Klein and Mr. Titchmarsh, and all of
Yeah.
those on there, which is great. I suppose one of the funniest things was, and you made reference to the Malvern flower show.
Mhm.
Well, can I do two? Because these are
Of
both, I
course.
think, funny. One of them
Absolutely.
was Malvern,
Yeah.
quite a few years ago, and they had Anton Dubac. Beck. So people that watch Strictly Come Dancing will know he is now a judge, but he used to be a dancer. And they said, we've got a special guest on the Sunday morning. He's not a gardener, but we'd like you to host him on the stage for sort of 30 minutes. And they told me who it was. And I thought, oh, I don't know anything about dancing. He doesn't know anything about gardening. How are we going to do it? And we did. It was a scream from start to finish. He's such a funny man. But the funny part was, and we had this huge audience there at Malvern. It was the autumn show on the Sunday morning. But we ended this session by Anton Dubac giving me a foxtrot lesson on stage. So that was a bit out
Wow.
of my comfort zone and something that was really funny. And we got some nice photographs of that. But then one that also happened at the Harrogate Flower Show, which I've been involved with for a long, long time up there in North Yorkshire, we were doing the Q&A session, and we'd got to the end of the session, and I'd noticed there was a gentleman, an elderly gentleman, sitting on the front row holding a paper bag with something in it. And you get that feeling, you think they want to ask a question, but they hadn't. So just as we finished, I sort of said, any more questions? And there was nothing. And I said to the gentleman, have you got a question there? It looks like you might have. And he said, well, go on, then I will have. And he got an apple out of the bag, and he passed it up to us at the front. And he said, the problem is these apples, they look really lovely from the outside, but when you cut them open, they've got little brown spots in the flesh. So these little brown spots going through the white flesh of the apple. So we cut one in half, and there it was, this lovely apple with all these brown spots going through it. And he said, I don't know whether they're fit to eat, whether I've got to throw them away. And we said, no, it's nothing to worry about. It's not a disease as such. We explained what it was. It was a condition called bitter pit, which is essentially a calcium deficiency when the fruits are developing and you get these little brown spots in the flesh. So it means there's lack of calcium in the soil around the tree. So he said, but they're perfectly okay to eat. Just cook with them as you would normally do that. He said, oh, well, thank you for that help. That's really sort of made take the worry out of it. So we then said to him, are all the apples on the tree like this, or is it just these few? And he said, oh, I don't know. He said, I've just bought them from Sainsbury's supermarket.
Oh my God.
Most supermarkets are available, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
And
I knew there was
them.
A punchline coming.
Yeah, he'd bought them and cut one open and saw it. So there we go. So that was quite, and the audience were in stitches with that one. It was a funny moment.
Oh dear. So what's next for you, Martin? Because obviously show season is coming up, but you're off to Australia soon. So what's going on for you next few months, and which is your first show next year?
Yeah, we are. Well, it's sort of the season of we write through the year, both of us, for various publications. Phil does the cookery, I do the gardening. We do talks at this time of the year to lots of groups, so we're doing those. And as you rightly say, we're off to Australia as well soon to visit family out there and do a few gardens. And we always take the podcast microphone and do a few bits while we're out there as well. We can't avoid doing that. And then we start the show season April. The first one will be the Harrogate Spring Flower Show, which is towards the end of April, and then it's on a roll, Malvern, and away we go then through the season. So
what would be sorry, just one more question before we wrap up. In terms of Australia, you're quite experienced, you're going there most years, I believe. Like how do they approach horticulture? Like, would they have like flower shows like we do? Like, how do they feel about garden centres? Or I guess it's very regional, is it not?
It is, because it's huge. I mean, we in fairness, we do go out every year, but we've been going to New Zealand because our daughter was in New Zealand, but is now in Australia. But we've been a few times to Australia, but it is very regional. So we go to South Australia. I mean, they've got not many, but some really good garden centres, but they're quite widespread. So we go to a really good one in the Barossa region, which is it's amazing because we're there in our winter, their summer, but they've got loads of the plants that we have here, roses, clematis, hydrangeas, they love them, but then they can also grow subtropical plants. So they've got this real mixture in their garden centres. They don't have as many shows as we have. They have one or two agricultural style shows that have the gardening section, but they don't tend to have, like we have, the Harrogate shows, the Malverns, the Chelseas. They don't tend to have the sort of big specific shows. They might have smaller regional sort of country fair plant shows, but not the same as we do. And I think that is partly because it's just such a vast country.
Yeah.
And the population isn't
climates
there.
in one, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But they are keen gardeners. I mean, the little town where our daughter lives, we love to walk around. It's a big village, small town. And you see lots of the plants that would have probably been taken out there 60, 70 years ago when people went out on a boat.
Wow.
And they'd have taken roses and all the garden shrubs that we grow still in England. But then, you'll find, sort of cannas growing between them and a banana plant and all these amalandas, these tropical climbers and that type of thing. So it's a weird thing, but they have some big gardens out there. So we always go and visit a few. In fact, we're planning to visit one which is a sort of vegetable garden. They grow it on a self-watering wicking system or in raised beds. So that's one we're going to have a look at and do a bit of filming there and sort of see if we can bring the idea back and try it here.
Super nice.
Very, very. I hope you have a wonderful time. I'm very slightly jealous.
What? You're in a cool place.
You're in South Carolina.
I'm in North Carolina, but
oh, North Carolina even, yeah.
By the time
she's always moaning.
By the time January comes around, it will be very cold. It will be very cold. That's why I'm jealous. But also,
and in the summer, it's too hot, apparently, Martin.
It is. Well, you can come here midsummer, and I would challenge you to even walk down the road.
Even your hair would go curly.
Yeah.
Anyway, Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, as always. Where can our listeners find out more about you? And you have a podcast as well, don't you? Tell us more.
Yes.
We do. Yes, we have a podcast which is called Pots and Trowels. So that goes out every week. And we chat to somebody. I spoke to Michael a week or so ago, who will be on it shortly. And we need to get you on to talk about your flower farm, Ellen Mary. So we normally chat to somebody from the world of horticulture, but we answer questions. We do a few jobs for the weeks, and just sort of Jill will share some of her recipes. So very sort of magazine-y. So that's every week, either on your normal provider or it's on YouTube. And then we do a weekly gardening video as well, which is usually quite a practical one. So it can be planting roses to, working in the veg garden, or we visit a few flower shows and gardens through the summer as well. So that goes out every week, and it's all on YouTube.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Queen and Fine Floral Design are sponsors of the plant-based podcast for Series 19. We provide nature-led designs for your home, office and events, because flowers really do make people happy. Check us out at queenandfine.com and follow us on Instagram at Queen and Fine.